Welcome back, everybody, to Toronto Today here on the Parlay. I'm your host, Luca Rosano, alongside my co host, Michael Singh. And we are back on this Tuesday to break down a ton of action that went down last night. I got destroyed with my best bet. News broke late that Jimmy Butler and PJ Tucker were going to be out, so it was too late to switch on that. As Mike's pick looked in question early on, but he rebounded nicely, and he got himself the victory. I do want to start the show, Mike. I know we talk about Toronto sports, but big news just dropped. That is, Tom Brady has officially announced his retirement. So I just want to pay tribute to the greatest player of all time in the NFL. And it was speculated this weekend that it was going to happen, but it never came from Brady. And today, Brady did confirm that he is stepping away from the NFL. So truly the end of an era, as we're going to miss Brady. Well, let's talk about the Leafs, and they almost blew that bet that you had. It didn't look that good early on. I mean, they pulled Campbell. They were down by, what was it, 2? And they stormed back. And they not only won the game, but they covered the spread, which was 1.5. As this was an impressive outing. We saw Austin Matthews turn it up. He had a hat trick. And like I said, the Leafs covered the -1.5 on the puck line, which was at -130 odds. And Matthews, just going back to his hat trick and just how great he's been scoring the puck. He's on pace for a 58-goal season, as the Leafs, they got an early scare, but they're able to survive and win this type of wild game that we talked about yesterday, that the Leafs can win any way, shape, or form these days.
They're never out of any game, it seems like, anymore. Now, they have created a habit of going behind kind of early in games of late. Hopefully that trend stops and they can kind of, refine their footing here and get a solid 60 minutes in. But yeah, as we mentioned yesterday, this team has a lot of fight, a lot of heart, and they're not willing to kind of give in, no matter the circumstances. So got to give them some credit there. And I think overall in Toronto sports, it was a good night, because if you bet on a Toronto sports parlay, you're walking away with a plus 146 odds. So if you took the Leafs and the Raptors last night, you probably were pretty happy. And both were kind of crazy games, like just a wild Monday night. In terms of the Leafs in general, I love the play, obviously, of Austin Matthews with that hat trick. And kind of crazy is that he's one of the safest bets right now for an anytime goal bet. An NHL goal per game leader since the start of last season. Austin Matthews is far and ahead with 0.76 goals per game. And then you have Leon Draisaitl at 0.65, who's coming in at number 2. So a full tenth of a goal ahead of Leon Draisaitl. Then you have Alex DeBrincat at 0.6, and then Ovi at 0.59. So Austin Matthews is easily right now, statistically, the best goal scorer in the National Hockey League. And it's crazy that a couple shows ago, like I want to say like 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Austin Matthews and him flirting with the Rocket Richard, the highest goal scoring trophy here in the NHL. And his odds were something like plus 600, something really pretty decent for a shout like Matthews. Well, fast forward 2 weeks and we're looking at those odds again, and he has the same odds as Leon Draisaitl right now at plus 250 to win that award. So he has technically the worst odds, best odds, whichever way you want to phrase it, to win that award. And he's 3 goals back of Draisaitl. So Vegas has certainly taken notice. I'm sure the league has taken notice, and bettors have taken notice about the value that bet could have put in, or could have brought, if you did get Austin Matthews at that number. So, I mean, I think it's a little too late. I don't know if it's worth it to put in at plus 250, even though I do believe he will win the Rocket Richard at the end of the year, because this is a guy that just knows how to put the puck in the back of the net. Another thing I want to quickly point out here is on a bit of a sour note, Jack Campbell. He's now given up 3 goals or more in 6 straight starts, owning an .853 save percentage in that stretch. And actually, if you go back all the way to December 1st, he has a sub 900 and over a 3.00 goals against average, which is far from the numbers he was putting up. Somehow, some way, he's actually still managing to find wins. I think he's 8-2-2 over that stretch. But is that concerning for you at all, Luca, the way that Jack Campbell's kind of slowed down here, at least statistically?
I think it's too early to be very concerned, but you definitely got to keep in mind what's been going on. Yeah, he's definitely not played at that same pace he started the season, that all-star caliber play. But I don't think it's I think it's too quick for fans to overreact here. He just is going through a tough stretch, and I would give him the benefit of the doubt. We know he can bounce back. He's proven that. And yeah, for as much as the Leafs have tremendous firepower, they're going to need Jack Campbell down the stretch, and they're going to need him come playoff time. So it's better this run happens now in the middle of the season than later on. But where's my confidence level with Jack Campbell? It's shaken a bit, but it's still there. I'm not ready to say there's a problem here that the Leafs have to look into. I think overall, he's still headed for, good moments with this team, and he's going to be counted on, as we mentioned in the playoffs. He's going to be that number one, and he's going to have to go up against some good teams on hopefully a long Leafs playoff run. So I'm not ready to hit the panic button with Jack Campbell.
It was one of those games where having the goalie tandem actually paid off for the Maple Leafs, because Peter Mrazek stepped in and he did a heck of a job. He had over 20 saves last night and only allowed the one goal, which I thought wasn't his fault. And most importantly, he gave his team a chance to come back in that game, which is all you can ask for as someone who entered the first period cold. Now, I guess tonight it's going to be interesting to see, because prior to this one, Mrazek was named the starter
Yeah.
prior to last night. But Mrazek came in the first period and essentially played most of that game. Do you go back with Mrazek, who just had a strong showing against the Devils on the second night of a back-to-back, or do you kind of count that as Mrazek's start? And that's interesting, because if Mrazek's in net, I'm not sure I feel too confident about taking the Leafs on, let's say, the puck line tonight. But if Campbell's in net, I still feel a little bit more confident despite what happened last night. So that's interesting to keep an eye out on.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, I would still say Mrazek goes tonight, but very interesting. And I know we were talking about the over-unders for Mrazek starting. I think we had it at what, like 10 more starts? It's looking like it's going to go over. He's obviously being counted on more than what people thought he would be down the stretch here. And yeah, I think I think they will ride with him tonight. I think they just totally give Campbell, 1.5 games off, and hopefully he can just find his confidence and his mindset and be ready for the next game. So yeah, if Mrazek does go tonight, I mean, that could open the door for New Jersey, but I still don't think Jersey wins it. I know it's in Jersey tonight. It's a home and home, but I still think the Leafs find a way to win. They've just been putting up a ton of goals lately, and I really can't see why you would bet against this team. I mean, 13 goals in their last 2 games. They have proven if they go down early, they can come back. They have the firepower, and they're proving it. And Austin Matthews right now is on an incredible tear. Bunting too. The Leafs
How
are
about
just
How about Mitch Marner?
Mitch Marner too. Yeah.
He's now scored in 6 straight games. He buried one off the Austin Matthews feed last night, and I think we touched on it on this show. That was a plus 210 prop bet to
Yeah.
keep that streak going. So if you hit that with me, because I did hit that, you'd be pretty happy last night, especially if you parlayed that with the Leafs on the puck line, like I did. So that worked out. And tonight, Mitch Marner, Luca, plus 215 there on the puck line, or on the prop bet to score once again anytime goal, that's pretty favorable odds with considering the heater that he's on right now. I mean, he's
Yeah.
playing out of his mind, not only goal scoring but also assists, playmaking. He's doing it all right now, and if he's lining up next to Matthews again tonight, I wouldn't be surprised if he finds the back of the net. And just quickly, another player I want to highlight who has had a lot of success against New Jersey, that's John Tavares. He scored at least a goal in 5 of the Leafs' last 6 games against the Devils. So he didn't score last night, but prior to that, he scored in 5 straight against New Jersey. Of course, he knows them very well from
Yeah.
playing with the Islanders, and he's plus 130 tonight to find the back of the net. So those are 2 I would keep an eye on.
Yeah, this is a game where everybody could eat, and we could just see a goal onslaught from every Leafs big time player chipping in. So we'll see if the Leafs can win the home and home here. They beat Jersey last night in Toronto. They'll be taking on Jersey again, this time in New Jersey. All right, let's talk about another team that is going to see an opponent relatively quickly from their last matchup, and that is the Raptors. This is going to be a big time matchup against the Heat. We don't know who's going to start for the Heat. But before we get into that matchup, let's just talk about the Raptors' impressive win. So the line was in favor of the Hawks. I think it was 1.5. Then right before the game, about 30 minutes, Trae Young tried to go. He couldn't. He was having some issues with his shoulder, so he did not play in this game. So all of a sudden, the Raptors were slight favorites. And you talk about the Leafs coming back when they were down early. The Raptors did the exact same thing. They were down by, I believe it was 11 in the third quarter when the Hawks were making their run, and they were getting tremendous production from guys like Herter and Bogdanovich. And then the Raptors stormed back. And it was thanks to two guys who are on absolute heaters right now. You got Fred VanVleet, who's now made 3+ 3-pointers in 17 straight games. What a ridiculous stat that is. And how about Gary Trent Jr., or let me call him Headband Gary Trent Jr. Since putting on that headband, he's gotten some superpowers that we don't know of. 4 straight games posting 30+ points. He's in some elite company. I believe players that do that are guys like James Harden, Kevin Durant, and I forgot the other. But his last 4 games have been unbelievable. 31-9, 31 points on 9 threes, 33 points on 5 threes with 5 assists, 32 points on 6 threes, and 32 points on 5 threes. He's hitting the 3 ball. And last night was such a big showcase of that, especially late in the game, because you got to credit the Hawks and especially Bogdanovich. He was hitting some big time threes, but then Gary Trent Jr. went right back down the other way and hit his own 3. I mean, it was fun to watch Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet, especially down the stretch, hitting these shots. And also, I got to show some love to Pascal Siakam's defense. He was all over this game with his hands, hustling to get the ball. And he has obviously elevated his play of late. This Raptors team, I know it was without Trae Young, but regardless, this was a nice win. We talked about how close these teams are in the standings. We talk about how the Raptors are going to be playing in meaningful games almost every single night now. This was a big win, and it's now 2 games in a row where the Raptors have shown their ability to close out a tightly contested game. This was a team that had those issues, but now you go into Miami, triple overtime, you win that game. And now you go into Atlanta against a team that had won 7 games in a row, goes down to the wire. You were down with a couple minutes left at some point. I know it was a back and forth battle, but you closed that game out as well. So this is just a great showing if you're a Raptors fan. And again, the starters logging heavy minutes, but I took to Twitter yesterday and I said, you get this team some bench pieces and they're up to something big. You cannot ignore what the Raptors are doing. They clearly have the talent. And Gary Trent Jr., I'm just so glad he's a Raptor right now, because that trade almost a year ago today, it's paying off and then some.
How much weight do you kind of put on this with Trae Young out of the lineup is my question. Is this not a game the Raptors are expected to win? Because if we're sitting here today talking about the Raptors losing to the Hawks without Trae Young, then it's like red flags. But right now we're talking about this in a very good light, which is cool because yeah, they played really well, specifically Gary Trent Jr. But they found a way to win, so I don't want to take too much away from them, but it wasn't the most convincing performance for me against a team I believe they should have definitely won. I mean, Trae Young they're easily the Hawks' most important player. Their replacement player is Delon Wright, which, I mean, how about that decision a couple of years ago by Masai Ujiri? It was coming down to either Delon Wright or Fred VanVleet. And look who's taken that next steps in their game. Well, Delon still seems, he's a very good defensive player, but he still seems like he's the same type of player that he was when he left the Raptors. So just a great decision overall. But I think this is a game the Raptors definitely had to win, especially considering what was at stake here. This was a very important game in the NBA standings, in the playoff race, and it was a big win for Toronto overall. So I come away feeling content about that. I still don't love the amount of minutes that we're kind of giving our guys, especially on the first night of a back-to-back when you know you have a very hungry Heat team coming to town who's going to be looking for revenge. But a win is a win, especially when it's worth like 2 games when the Hawks are so close there in the standings. And just a little bit on Gary Trent Jr. Yeah, man, like this guy is, I think it was a week ago we were talking about Gary Trent Jr. and his slow start since coming back from injury. Neither of us said we were very concerned, but I didn't expect him to pick up the Heat turn up the heat this quickly, this amazingly. Let's call it like it is. I mean, he's only the fifth player in Raptors history to score more than 30 points in 4 straight games, and the first since Kawhi Leonard did it in 2019. DeRozan right now, he holds the franchise record with 30 plus in 5 straight games back in 2016. So Gary Trent Jr. will have a chance to kind of tie that franchise record tonight if he puts up another great performance in Miami, or against Miami, sorry. And it won't be easy, man. It won't be easy because, as we mentioned, this Heat team, they rested some players last night. There's still question marks for tonight, but I'd be surprised if we don't see Jimmy Butler, at least Jimmy Butler, in the lineup tonight against the Raptors, which, I mean, he's always very capable of carrying that team on his back by himself. So I'm expecting another good one tonight, and I'm interested to see kind of this whole narrative we've been talking about for a long time is how will these minutes start to rack up here, and how will it affect the Raptors, especially on the second night of a back-to-back?
Yeah, tonight's going to be a tough game. Twofold for Miami. They just got their asses kicked last night against the Celtics, and they're still probably pissed off about losing to the Raptors at home in that triple overtime thriller. I mean, some numbers that do suggest the Raptors could have another victory tonight. Miami's just 4-12 straight up in their last 16 when playing in Toronto, and there will be some fans. We're back. A couple of fans are back, so that should make a little bit of a difference. Miami's not. They haven't been one of the best away teams either. 14-13 away from home. And the Raptors, no fans, they have been getting it done at home. 10-2 against the spread in their last 12 games. So this is going to be a very interesting battle. You're going to have two teams coming into this one that are going to be hungry for another win. Miami could be a little bit more rested because they did get blown out last night. And as you just mentioned, PJ Tucker and Jimmy Butler were late scratches. So I would think they play tonight. Tyler Hero's going to be looking to get back on track. Duncan Robinson, who was a non-factor, will be looking to get back on track. I don't think Kyle Lowry's going to go tonight. And you know what? I'm okay with that because the Raptors and the Heat still have one more matchup. It's in April. I believe it's April 12th. I'm okay with holding off on Kyle Lowry's return to Toronto because at that time, you would hope things are a little bit better and more fans will be in the stands. And I'd rather the first time Kyle coming back be a spectacle and not just in front of 500 people or whatever it is. So I'm okay with that. And again, I just want Kyle to get back to 100% or just deal with whatever he's going on with. And hopefully everything is okay with that. But yeah, this is interesting. I mean, Vegas, they have the Raptors as slight favorites tonight, -2.5. Some also, you got some interesting player prop bets as well for Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam. So let's kind of make our prediction for tonight's game. I was right yesterday. I was feeling the Raptors. It did help that Trae Young was out of the lineup. After that, I felt really confident with my bet. What do you see happening tonight? Raptors and Heat playing for the third time this season. It's going to be in Toronto. We still don't know who's going to be suiting up for the Heat, but assuming they do get some guys back, who are you leaning towards in this matchup?
First of all, that's a really good point you made about Lowry. I love how you said that because I think he definitely needs that proper tribute, as he is definitely a Toronto Raptor legend. Tonight, it's tough because Vegas is toying us with these odds right now because I want to put the money down on the Raptors because Miami has really struggled when playing in Toronto. Raptors are actually 12-4 against the Heat at Scotiabank Arena in their last 16 games. So they've had the Heat's number. And at home, as you mentioned, they're 10-2 against the spread in the last 12 games at home. So the Raptors love playing at Scotiabank Arena. And when you match that with the fact that they've actually covered the spread in each of their last 8 games at home against teams that have had winning records, we talk about how much this team loves to play up or down to the level of their opponent. I'm expecting a very big Raptor performance tonight, but the only caveat to all of that is second night of a back-to-back with the amount that this team has kind of been put through with the workload being implemented here on their starters. On the other hand, though, the Heat have lost each of their last 5 games on the second leg of a back-to-back. So there is that factor here where both teams are coming off a back to back, albeit it will be a more well rested Heat team because they didn't have Jimmy or PJ in their lineup last night. But my heart's telling me Raptors, man. My heart is telling me Raptors to cover that 2.5 point spread. I mean, they're on a roll right now. They've shown that if they're not going to beat the Heat, it'll at least be a very good game.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to actually say Raptors here.
I got to agree with you. I just think, given the momentum of this team, they're showing that they can come back, win these closely contested games. And just given Miami's recent struggles, especially on the road and on the second leg of a back to back, and you don't know who's going to be suiting up for them, those are too many unknowns for me. So I would go with the Raptors. They're going to be back at home. They know the importance of this game to get another one. And we talk about we talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago, how the next 8 games, which they're probably at like game 3 or 4 of that, are going to be huge. And so far, the Raptors are surviving this difficult part of their schedule going into the trade deadline. So I think they're going to get another sound win here, man. Gary Trent Jr., he's been on a heater. I think he's going to have another big game. And just to make some more predictions, I'm liking that Pascal Siakam player prop of hitting over 20.5. He's done that in 4 of his last 5. He's been scoring the basketball, especially inside. I mean, that spin move is now working again. He's finishing around the rim, which was an issue early on. It's great to see. And then Fred VanVleet, his assist prop is 7.5. I don't know about that. That's going to be a close one. I think I would probably go under. But I mean, he's been a pretty safe bet against, with that assist prop bet under his belt. So the Raptors got a lot of value right now, whether it's prop bets against the spread, straight up. It's really hard to bet against this team or its players. So yeah, we might be Raptors homers going with the Raptors again, but I think they're going to make it 3 wins in a row until they got to take on the Bulls on Thursday, which is going to be another huge matchup.
It's been that way since like just before Christmas or just after Christmas there, where the Raptors have been money if you're betting with the Raptors, especially some of their player props. That Pascal, point prop I really like because he's taken his game to a new level and he's getting a lot more looks, a lot more touches. But with everyone else stepping up, I actually really like that Fred VanVleet assist prop. He's hit that assist prop in each of his last 5 games. And I feel like it's because his supporting cast has been hitting their shots. Like, he's no longer just pulling up by himself. He's finding the open man. He's finding Gary Trent Jr. He's knocking down his buckets. He's finding Chris Boucher crashing. He's finding Pascal Siakam for the easy 2, or he's finding someone like OG who's been knocking down some of his shots, especially in the corner. So I'm actually on the other end with that Fred VanVleet assist prop. I know it's high, but at plus 115, I think he'll get at least 8 assists tonight, especially considering the Heat are a very diligent team defensively. You're going to need someone like Fred VanVleet to kind of break them down. So I actually kind of lean towards that. But yeah, man, it's a good time right now to be a Raptors fan. Like, this is very exciting basketball, which I don't think any of us would have anticipated at this point of the year. It almost feels like every game at this point is like a playoff game, which, yeah. I mean, as a fan, you absolutely love to see it midway through the regular season.
Yeah, he's hit that assist prop in his last 5 games, and he's been flirting with triple-double numbers. Let's call it for what it is. He's really been stuffing the stat sheet, and that's Fred VanVleet. If Kyle was playing tonight, or if he somehow does play, I'm definitely feeling confident about that under. Kyle's going to try to lock up VanVleet. But yeah, I mean, I can see why you like that over, especially with how well he's been playing. And if Kyle's out, that's going to be Fred VanVleet's time to continue to play make out there and just get things done on the court. We'll see what happens there. We'll see if the Leafs can win again in Jersey, and let's see if the Raptors can win against the Heat for the second time in a couple days. All right, let's get to our best bet. Mike was victorious last night. I was not. Who you riding with tonight? You going back to the well, or are you going to go with another pick here?
I got to go back to the well, man. I think I jinxed you last night, but
yeah, you did.
It's inching me closer to your overall record, so I'll say it now. I'm just kidding. But tonight, let's go back to what's been working for me. I've been on a little bit of a heater with these, so I'm actually going to take the Leafs again to cover on the puck line. They're at plus 105. I think they'll win by at least 2 goals tonight. And for all the reasons we talked about above, but also the Devils are just not a very good hockey team. I know they gave the Leafs a little bit of a run for their money, a little bit of a scare last night, but as especially on the second night of a back-to-back, I think the better team will prevail, and I think the Leafs have gone past that sort of wake up call from the Devils, and over the last two periods of hockey, they absolutely dominated the Devils. So I'm taking the Leafs to cover that 2-goal spread here.
Yeah, no, I like it. Definitely go back to what's been working. For me, I'm going to go with a team that's just been on an incredible tear. It'll be interesting to see if they can match their win total from a couple months ago, and that's the Phoenix Suns. I know it's an enticing matchup. They're going up against the Brooklyn Nets, but the Nets are on a slide right now, and the Phoenix Suns are doing the exact opposite. They won 10 games in a row. They're finding different ways to win. I'm only laying 6 here at home. I think Phoenix gets it done. I do not like how the Nets have been looking. Kevin Durant is such a big part of that team. James Harden clearly isn't enough to just shoulder everything. Those role players have not really lived up to the expectations. Also, they've been dealing with a ton of injuries to guys like Joe Harris. Phoenix right now, they've just been an amazing team to watch. I can't believe that this team is doing what they're doing right now. First place in the West. I know everybody's talking about the Nets, the Warriors, some of these surprise teams like the Grizzlies and the Bulls. How about the Phoenix Suns, who are just a year removed of making it to the NBA Finals? They look poised to potentially return there. So I like them tonight. I think they're going to win this game pretty comfortably. It's only 6. So I'm going to take the Suns -6 against the Nets.
How about the play of Chris Paul? This guy is like an ageless wonder. He has been, I swear, over the last like 5 games, he's averaging like 17, 18 assists along with 20 points. Like he's hit 20 points in at least his last 5 games. Big fan of Chris Paul because he is helping out my fantasy basketball team right now. So I'm all in on that bet. I hope the Suns have another special night. And quickly, that assist prop for Chris Paul is at 11.5. And man, the way that he's going right now is smash that over because he's playing like an absolute machine. And if he continues to do what he's been doing, then I expect the Suns to keep that streak going. So I like it, Luca.
Yeah, as long as he's there, you got to feel good about the Suns. He just opens everything up. He really is the engine to that team, and it's a good time if you're a Suns fan. This team was not a fluke. They're doing it again. So we'll see how we do with our player props tonight, and that will conclude another edition of Toronto Today here on the Parlay. Good luck on your bets if you place any, and on behalf of myself and Mike, thank you so much for watching. Follow us all over social media, and we'll catch you all again tomorrow with another episode of the show. Take care.